unit rule and uninstructed, except that the delegation will have as its mandate the wishes of the Democratic Party of the state of Mississippi. It is my hope that the mandate will be to work and fight for an acceptable platform and acceptable candidates, a platform and candidates that are acceptable to the Democratic Party of Mississippi. I also suggest that this convention recess rather than adjourn. I suggest that we adopt the plan proposed by our sister states of the South, whose problems are ours, and that after the Chicago Convention is over, we're again assembled, receive a report from our delegates, and then take whatever official action is wise and proper. I further suggest that the selection of Mississippi's Democratic presidential electors be delayed until this convention again assembles. Those are my beliefs. Perhaps, friends, there is a better plan. If there is such a better plan, it will have my complete support. If, and please listen to this qualification very carefully, if this other plan has as its objective a declaration of Southern Democratic independence from whatever unwanted and unacceptable policies and candidates that may be adopted or nominated by the National Convention. I wish to make it completely clear and entirely evident that as an individual and as a governor, I will not endorse, favor, or promote any plan that makes the Democratic Party of our state an organization without independence and without courage, without voice in determining the program, policies, and nominees of the National Party. Friends, you're aware of a donkey's southern appendage when it faces north. I'm not at all interested in being the tail end of any donkey. I am confident you'll support me in my feelings. Some may call us disloyal, but what is loyalty? Is lip acceptance of candidates or party measures that are opposed to our beliefs and institutional loyalty? Or is such action disloyal? I think we should be called disloyal with justice if we gave support for purpose of expediency to measures and men that are opposed not alone to our interests, material and spiritual, but are also opposed to the principles of Jeffersonian democracy. I would rather be acclaimed as a loyal American than to be a self-styled loyal Democrat, if being a loyal Democrat means swallowing without protest policies that my very being rebels against as being inimical to the best interests of Mississippi, of the South, and of the nation. No, our first loyalty is to our own principles, and we truly demonstrate that loyalty, when we repudiate the false beliefs and throw them back in the teeth of those seists of a rotten political machine who are willing to profess many things and sacrifice the real principles of Jeffersonian democracy for political patronage. As Governor Burns has said, I hope we can affiliate ourselves with the National Party. But in my belief, all political handouts, all the spoils of political victory, all the power of political patronage is not worth a contemptible surrender to the overlords who, for their own sinister purposes, wish to make us bow to their wishes and demands. For a half a century we have kept a flame burning, a flame, friends, that continued to honor the memory of the founders of the Democratic Party, a beacon that has lighted the road of return, the road that returns to the truth, the unchanged and unchangeable truth that brought the Democratic Party into existence. Since 1933, we have seen that flame stifled, all but extinguished, by the strange doctrines adopted by the National Democratic Party. We of the South have been unable to make a protest within the party effective. We of the South have been unable to bring about a rebirth and a rededication of the National Party to the principles on which it was founded. There's been no avenue of escape except through our senators and our congressmen. They have joined in the halls of Congress with others from the South and with men of other parties whose beliefs have been more closely in accord with ours. Those measures have had telling results and have thwarted in many ways proposed legislation that would have still further undermined our American system. And now the Democratic Party, the National Democratic Party, to which we've all been loyal throughout the years, has repeatedly adopted certain policies that were first fathered by the Republican Party back in the days of Reconstruction, the period that historians have fittingly called the tragic era. Never has there been a more ironic turn in political events. Never has any political party been guilty of greater ingratitude. And it is beyond my power or understanding to comprehend the thinking and motives of few Southerners who profess loyalty to the present leadership of the party and would give those men and measures their support, their blind loyalty. That party is not the Democratic Party of Jackson and Jefferson. That party has gathered its strength by banning its creeds, by pandering to the extremists, by throwing open its membership to the radical minorities, the leftists and the semi-leftists, a party that has listened to and adopted the dangerous preachings of false prophets. I am sure you, all of you, are indeed thankful that those Southern Democrats are few in number, and that all of us are profoundly grateful that the great majority of Mississippi Democrats have made up their minds, have voted against unconditional surrender, have resolved to stand together, fired by the determination to fight to the finish those demagogues who have led the party of our fathers into fumbling ineptitude, phony issues, and faltering indecision. There are only three paths, friends, that we can follow. First, unconditional surrender, which means we will support any platform and any nominee of the Democratic Party. Or second, support the platform and nominees of the Republican Party. Or third, do as we did in 1948, cast our votes in November and in the Electoral College for a real states' rights Jeffersonian Democrat, and know that we voted for a man who stands for the principles in which we all believe. As for me, friends, I'll never agree to accept the first. refuse to surrender blindly on either the platform or the nominee of the National Party. I will never vote Republican or attempt to lead you into the Republican Party as some have unjustly accused me of doing. I frankly do not understand how any real Mississippi Democrat can consider voting a Republican ticket, regardless of how popular the Republican nominee may be. Listen to the 1948 Republican platform. Lynching or any other form of mob violence anywhere is a disgrace to in any civilized state. We favor the prompt enactment of legislation to end this infamy. One of the basic principles of this republic is the equality of all individuals in their right of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This principle is enunciated in the Declaration of Independence and embodied in the Constitution of the United States. It was vindicated on the field of battle and became the cornerstone of the republic. This right of equal opportunity to work, to advance in life, should never be limited in any individual because of race, religion, color, country, or origin. We favor the enactment and just enforcement of such federal legislation as may be necessary to maintain this right at all times in every part of this republic. We favor the abolition of the poll tax as a requisite of voting. Is that different from the highly controversial objectionable plank in the Democratic platform of 1948? It's not, my friends. The Republican Party has nothing to offer us. Now, my friends, if the National Democratic Party refuses to recognize the sound requests of the South for recognition in party affairs, then we can only take step 3 and join with our fellow Southerners in appropriate action. As real Democrats from the state of Mississippi, we will not lack important allies. Our sister states stand with us, resolved as we are resolved to continue the fight. Willing as we are willing to serve notice that Southern democracy will not be content to slink and cower at the back door, and with hat in hand and servile slavery trade a sacred heritage for a mess of political parties. Let us make it apparent in Chicago that we are no longer willing to blind our eyes to issues. Let us say in terms that cannot be misunderstood that we refuse definitely, finally, and completely to make any debasing and humiliating pre-convention pledges. We want to know, we must know our candidates before we promise them our support. We want to know, and we insist on our right to accept or reject candidates and a platform that may contain policies that, if enacted into law, would destroy the very foundation of our Southern life. We refuse to issue open notes, signed in advance, that delivers the South to the support of men and measures that are unacceptable to the South. Let us serve notice that we are still the solid South, that now unity is an awakened force. Our combined strength is a political asset that cannot be discounted in advance. There's one Missouri principle, and only one, I believe, I like. That's their motto. I suggest we borrow it. Without rancor, let us say to the National Democratic Party, show me, for no longer will we buy hidden values. We're no longer in the market for any pig in any poll. ought to be not told, but shown. We refuse to commit our strength, and it's a great and growing strength in unseeing, unknowing blindness. Let there be forever no open notes delivered to the National Democratic Party in advance and signed by Southern democracy. Friends, in conclusion, let us stand firm on the principles in which we so strongly believe. Let us ask all Americans, North and South, East and West, to join us in our fight for the preservation of constitutional government on which the liberty of every citizen depends. Let us keep up the good fight for states' rights, set an example in the acceptance of our rightful responsibilities as sovereign states. Let us be of clean heart, clear mind, and steady hand as we fight the good fight, ever loyal to the principles in which we believe. And my earnest prayer is that God in His wisdom may guide us in our deliberations and light our footsteps as we travel the course dictated by honor, principle, and integrity. I thank you.
If there be doubt where we stand in Mississippi now, it should be cast aside and faded away after that magnificent address stating our position. The chair will now recognize Mr. Thad Fowler, chairman of the Credentials Committee, for its report. Mr. Fowler. Operator 4, long distance, base St. Louis wants you. Mr. Forrest Cooper, operator 11, Indianola, long distance, wants you. I understand telephones on the south side in the office. Mr. Thad Fowler.
Mr. Chairman, delegates to the Mississippi Democratic Convention, your Credentials Committee begs to report that, number one, the credentials of the delegates from every county of the state have been found in order. Number two, there has been no contest reported to the committee. Respectfully submitted, signed by the chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this report.
You've heard the report and the motion that it be adopted. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the report of the Credentials Committee be adopted. Is there discussion? So many as in favor will signify by saying aye. Those that are opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the motion is carried, and the resolution of their report is adopted. Before calling for the nominations for the permanent chairman, I wish to make this announcement. Some may leave before the conclusion. At the conclusion of this session of the convention, there will be a meeting for purposes of organization of the newly elected Democratic Executive Committee that will be elected by this convention on this side of the stage, to my left, immediately. There will also be a meeting of all of the delegates and the alternate delegates selected to attend the National Convention in Chicago on this side of the stage immediately after the conclusion of this session. Bear that in mind, so you'll all be there. Important business at both will be transacted. I will now proceed to entertain nominations for permanent chairman of this convention. Mr. Icy Day of Atala, Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Mr. Day.
Mr. Chairman, Governor White, ladies and gentlemen of the convention. Last night, I heard a statement made by a great Democrat and a great Mississippian that struck me as being of prime importance to this convention. He said this, that socialism was the first step toward communism, and that those Democrats in Mississippi who had become Democrats since 1936 have never lived under a truly democratic regime. In my opinion, no truer statement was ever made by a member of the Democratic Party of Mississippi. The selection of a permanent chairman of this convention is a very important task. We are selecting today the man who will lead the Democratic Party in Mississippi for the next 4 years. And I believe that it behooves us to select a man who has been tried, who has been weighed in the balance, and hasn't been found wanting in any respect. I believe that it behooves us to select a man who subscribes fully and completely to the doctrine of states' rights and to those principles of the Democratic Party established by our forefathers and under which we have lived and been happy until recent years. I have in mind such a man with whom it's been my privilege and my honor to be closely associated as a member of the legislature for a good many years. I came to the legislature with him in 1932, and I believe that was his first term. And I have served consistently with him since that time, except when he decided that he wouldn't run again in 1946. This man rendered outstanding service to the state of Mississippi, and throughout all the years of his tenure in office, his record as a public official and his record as a private citizen has been one that is consistent with all of the traditions of our democracy as we would like to have it in this state, and with the traditions of the Southland as we know it, and as we expect to keep them with God's help in this next convention about to be called. This man in the campaign in 1948 was in the forefront fighting for the principles that we stand for, stood for then, and that we stand for now. And if you select him as your permanent chairman and the leader of the party in Mississippi for the next 4 years, I feel quite sure that you'll have a leader, a man of integrity, a man of great ability, and a man of high principle and true loyalty to the Democratic Party and to the principles that we all believe in. It's now my privilege and my honor to present to this convention for your consideration as permanent chairman the name of the Honorable John Holland, a distinguished lawyer, a great legislator, a great citizen, and a great Democrat.
Mr. John H. Holloman of Columbus has been nominated as permanent chairman. Are there other nominations? Mr. Dick Clark. Senator J.O. Clark, Senate President Pro Tem of the Senate from Tishomingo, seconds the nomination of John H. Holloman as permanent chairman of this convention. Be there other nominations? It's been moved that the nominations be closed. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that the nominations be closed. Is there any discussion? So many as are in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those that are opposed will say no. The no ayes have it, and the motion's carried. Those in favor of the election of John H. Holloman as your permanent chairman signify by saying aye. Those that are opposed, no. I declare him elected unanimously. Mr. Holloman, will the delegation from Hinds, Lowndes County conduct the permanent chairman to his post? I did that on purpose so you could see these good-looking men that we have over in my neighboring county of Lowndes. Distinguished, tall-looking fellas, you know. Honorable John H. Holloman, your permanent chairman. John, come on,
fellas. Mr. Chairman, and fellow delegates, I just don't know how to express my appreciation for the honor that has just been bestowed upon me. I want to say that I'm a fighting man, and I subscribe to what Governor White has just said. We are at the crossroads in our political life. I, for one, don't believe in situations such as this, in putting on the kid gloves. I believe in taking off the kid gloves and putting on the brass knucks. That's my ticket. Now, I believe that it is now in order to receive nominations for the election of a permanent secretary. If there be no objection, may I suggest that the temporary secretary, my good friend Mrs. Paul Farr, be nominated and elected by acclamation. I happen to serve with a husband in the legislature. Do I have any objection to my appointing Mrs. Paul Farr as permanent secretary of this convention? Hearing no objection, Mrs. Farr, you are the permanent secretary then of this convention. As next order of business, we have two temporary assistant secretaries, Mr. Hardy Lott and my good friend George Payne Cottrell. Do I hear any objection to the chairman of this convention appointing those two gentlemen to be permanent assistant secretaries of this convention? Hearing no objection, Hardy and George Payne, you are hereby duly designated. Now, the chairman of this convention will now receive a report from the Resolutions Committee. The gentleman from Lee.
Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen of the convention, the Resolutions Committee has been in session and recommends the following resolutions for your consideration. Resolution number 1. Be it resolved by the Democratic Convention assembled at Jackson, Mississippi on this, the 26th day of June, 1952, that our keynote speaker, Governor Hugh White, be commended and be given the thanks of this convention for his forthright and courageous address delivered to the convention. His analysis of the fight and onslaught being made against the South, its customs and institutions by those who would use for their own selfish purposes and interests, was timely and true. He is entitled to the thanks and the commendation of all good Southern states' rights Democrats. I move the adoption of this resolution.
Do I hear a second to the motion for the adoption of this resolution? The motion has been duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and the resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Give it to the Secretary. Resolution number 2. Whereas the delegates of the Democratic Party of Mississippi in regular session assembled are mindful that the State Democratic Executive Committee, by appropriate resolution, appointed a People's Committee. And whereas each member of this said committee has rendered outstanding service to the people of Mississippi in the campaign to reestablish the principles of democracy in our party. And whereas the untiring efforts of the People's Committee have united the people of Mississippi behind the movement to restore to Mississippi and to the other states of the United States the rights guaranteed them under the Constitution. And whereas it has left nothing undone to carry the message to every precinct within the state of Mississippi, and in awakening the people of Mississippi to the necessity of immediate action in this emergency, and whereas the People's Committee has earned the thanks and and commendation of this convention and the people of Mississippi, therefore be it resolved that this convention do now express to each member of the People's Committee our profound appreciation for the outstanding service they have rendered and the efficient manner in which they have performed their duties. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this convention, a copy furnished the committee, and a copy furnished the press. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this resolution.
Do I hear a second to that motion? The motion has been duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Resolution number 3. Be it resolved by the Democratic Party of the state of Mississippi in convention assembled in the city of Jackson this the 26th of June 1952 that we acknowledge with great humility the divine power of Almighty God and implore His guidance through these critical days, that He may point to us and to the people of the world the pathway which will lead us safely past the pitfalls which beset our course to the goal of everlasting peace and the preservation of our cherished American way of life and the fundamental principles of government which have given to the people of this country unbound freedom and liberty enjoyed by no other people on the earth. The Democratic Party of Mississippi stands today where she's always stood, with her feet firmly planted on the solid foundation of the Constitution of the United States, pure Americanism and traditional Southern way of life. We reaffirm our devotion to the cherished traditions of Mississippi and our beloved Southland, and pledge anew our allegiance to the true principles of the historic Democratic Party of Mississippi, sacredly nurtured and defended by our forefathers and handed down to us from generation to generation, the party which we have been devotedly faithful and to which we have given our full support for more than 75 years, and by which we have stood firmly in the dark hours of adversity and defeat when it has been deserted for a pitiful mess of political pottage. We renew our pledge of fidelity to the faith of our fathers embedded in the ever-living and fundamental principles of the Bill of Rights in the Constitution of the United States, wherein is guaranteed the inalienable rights of individual liberty and freedom to every citizen, and the inalienable right of local self-government and the free exercise of its reserved powers to each sovereign state. We believe in states' rights and local self-government, and we are unalterably opposed to any encroachment upon the rights of the states by the Democratic Party reaffirms and pledges a strict adherence to the fundamental principles of constitutional representative government laid down by Thomas Jefferson, the founder of the party, and advocated by Madison, Monroe, Jackson, Cleveland, and Woodrow Wilson, among which are the doctrines of states' rights, free enterprise, and private initiative. And the party declares that the several states shall exercise free from the federal interference or encroachment by legislation, executive directive, judicial, fire, or otherwise, all of the rights and powers reserved to them by the Constitution, among them being the power to provide by law for the qualification of electors, the conduct of elections, regulations of employment practices within the states, segregation within the states, the definition of crimes committed within the borders, and designation of penalties therefor, except such crimes which, under the grant of power by the Constitution of the federal government, may be defined by it. B, the Democratic Party opposes excuse me. The Democratic Party opposes and will fight with all its might and power at its command the making or ratification of any treaty by whomsoever or whatever organization it may be presented, which in any manner surrenders the sovereign power of the United States or any state of the Union, or which abrogates or supersedes any of the provisions of the constitutions and the laws of the United States or the Constitution and the laws of any state, except such military treaties deemed necessary for our national defense. See, the Democratic Party affirms its faith in the wisdom of that provision of the federal Constitution which provides that the power to declare war is invested in the Congress of the United States, and we are opposed to the power being granted to any one man to order by executive power the use of the armed forces in any foreign country in the future without the consent of the American Congress having first been obtained. It is imperative that the sovereignty of the respective states be preserved inviolate. There has already been too much encroachment upon the powers by Congress, the executive, and the federal Supreme Court. And unless these usurpations by these three branches of the federal government is halted, all state power and authority will soon be abrogated, so local self-government destroyed, and liberty and freedom of our people will vanish from the land. We therefore urge and insist and demand, in the name of the safety and security of the American people, that a defense program should be adopted which will, as speedily as humanly possible, prepare this country to meet any emergency of armed conflict with which we may be confronted, and that it be given a priority over all others, that necessary legislation be enacted to ensure with no delays to the progress of this program from any controllable sources whatsoever, that all other programs be formulated and geared to coordinate with and support the defense program. Disloyalty, dishonesty, corruption, graft, and influence peddling, loose morals, and plain ordinary thievery, which has been exposed in our governmental affairs, and those responsible therefore must go, and none shall be continued or tolerated under any circumstances. Crime groups, gambling syndicates, goons, mobsters, and disloyal organizations and individuals who no matter whom they have been associated with or under what label they possess or operate, must be broken up and vigorously prosecuted in the courts. No political party is worthy of the confidence of the people which will permit these evil influences to exist abroad in the land without doing that which will effectively and surely destroy them and keep their ugly heads from ever rising again in this country. We strongly urge of our party that it give us a candidate for president in whom we have confidence and whom we can respect and support with pride and fervor. A man who is devoted to the principles of constitutional government of law and order and strict honesty in the administration of all phases of governmental administration. One who is uncompromising in those principles and who will not depart for political expediency. He should be a man who recognizes the dignity of man and believes the home and the family is the fountain from which flows the patriotism of God-fearing men who have faith in the Almighty as creator of mankind, who holds that freedom and the right to live is free in a free society is more precious than life itself. He should recognize and maintain that the welfare and happiness of mankind can be preserved only by a representative form of government. He should declare unequivocally against the legislative, executive, and judicial branches of the federal government, usurping powers reserved to the states. He should oppose these departments encroaching upon the powers of each other, and he should demand that the judiciary of our government be restored to its high and lofty station. He should devote his energy, power, and influence to halt waste and extravagance in government, balance the budget, eliminate unnecessary expenditures, and rid the government of all unnecessary agencies, bureaus, departments, bureaucrats, and hordes of useless employees. He should above all he should be above partisan and machine politics, and one who will place the welfare of the people as a whole above party and minority groups or majority groups, no matter how well organized or politically strong they may be. He should stand for a strong foreign policy dedicated to bring early and permanent peace to this country and the balance of the freedom-loving nations of the world, and who will fully cooperate to that end and make their full contribution in men, money, munitions, and all-out war effort necessary to assure such peace. And he should serve notice that the United States will no longer bear alone the burdens which others should share. He should be a man who will demand there be a thorough house cleaning in the affairs of the party and the departments of government, and that only the tried and true unquestioned loyalty be placed in high positions of power and authority and entrusted with the security and welfare of this nation. We have available to many able and capable Americans unquestioned loyalty, and toward whom there is no finger of suspicion pointed to take chances on those against whom there may be a doubt or suspicion cast. Senator Richard B. Russell of Georgia meets all the requirements deemed essential as a Democratic candidate for President of the United States, and we wholeheartedly endorse his candidacy for favorable consideration by the Democratic Convention. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this resolution.
You have heard the motion. Do I hear a second? Duly seconded. Any discussion? May I add, in the adoption, if you so adopt it, of this motion, that there be carried with it, by your same vote and token, an appreciation of the content and very fine phraseology and conviction written in to the resolution now before you. If there is no discussion, though... Yes, sir. Does the gentleman offer that in the form of a motion? Other...
I move that the word, I believe it would be all right, if the word be restored, be changed to ever kept.
You have heard the amendment so often. Do I hear a second?
I move that the gentleman's amendment be tabled.
You have heard the motion that the offered amendment be tabled. Any discussion on the motion to table? Those who are in favor of tabling the amendment offered by the gentleman will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no. The motion has been carried. The amendment is tabled. Any further amendment? Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion to adopt the resolution will signify by saying aye. Those opposed will say no. The ayes have it, and the motion has, and the resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Resolution number 4, whereas the Democratic Party of Mississippi is a political organization established under the laws of the state of Mississippi and is entirely independent of any other political organization and is subject to the will of this, its convention. And whereas in an election for president and vice president of the United States, the members of the Democratic Party of Mississippi are free to vote for the candidate they prefer. Now therefore be it resolved that the Democratic Party of Mississippi reserve to itself the right to determine its course of action at a subsequent meeting of this convention. Be it further resolved that the delegates elected by this convention to the convention of the National Democratic Party at Chicago shall file with the Credentials Committee of that convention a copy of this resolution, which shall advise that the Democratic Party of Mississippi reserves the right to take such action as it deems fit at any subsequent meeting of this convention. Mr. Chairman, I take pleasure in moving the adoption of this resolution.
Heard the motion, duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Resolution number 5. Whereas the members of the State Democratic Convention repose full faith, trust, and confidence in its duly elected delegates. And whereas it further appears that the said delegates will protect the full interest and the welfare of the people of the state of Mississippi whom they represent, as well as the true Mississippi democratic principles. Now therefore be it resolved by the Democratic Convention assembled at Jackson, Mississippi on this the 26th day of June 1952 that the state of Mississippi delegates be, they are hereby sent to the National Democratic Convention at Chicago, Illinois without instructions. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of this resolution.
You've heard the motion, duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Resolution number 6. Resolution of the Mississippi Democratic Convention binding its delegates to the National Convention to vote as a unit. Be it resolved that this convention bind its delegates in the Chicago Convention and in all other deliberations to the unit rule. The will of the majority of the delegation shall carry with it the full and complete voting power of the delegates as a whole, and its votes shall so be cast. I move the adoption of this resolution.
Heard the motion, duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Resolution number 8. This might arouse a little interest. Be it resolved by the convention, 1, that Mrs. John A. Clark has never been elected either by a lawful convention or committee action of the Democratic Party of Mississippi to serve as National Committee Woman of our party. 2, under the provisions of page 5 of the official manual of the Democratic National Convention, this convention now has the authority to name a National Committee Woman to serve through the forthcoming National Democratic Convention. Therefore be it resolved that this convention do now and proceed to the election of a National Committee Woman to serve the remainder of the term which expires with the adjournment of the National Convention, and we hereby expressly request the Democratic National Convention and its chairman to recognize the committee woman so elected. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of that resolution.
You've heard the motion, duly seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and that resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Give this to the Secretary. Resolution number 9. A resolution providing for a recess of this convention. Be it resolved that this convention, when it shall have concluded the program of the day, shall not adjourn, but recess until 10 o'clock a.m. on August the 5th, 1952, to meet at the City Auditorium in Jackson, Mississippi, with its permanent organization, committees, and rules, and then and there to transact such business as may properly come before it. Be it further resolved that the permanent chairman of this convention, by and with the consent and the approval of the State Democratic Executive Committee, may fix another date, not later than August the 31st, 1952, for the recess meeting of this convention, in which event the chairman shall give notice in the public press of any changes in the time of such recess meeting. Mr. Chairman, I move the adoption of that resolution.
Do I hear a second? Motion's been duly made and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. That resolution has been unanimously adopted.
Ladies and gentlemen, that completes the report of your Resolutions Committee, for which we thank you.
The chair will now recognize Honorable Thompson McClellan, chairman of the nominating committee, who will now make the report for that committee. Mr. McClellan.
Ladies and gentlemen of the convention, it's now my pleasure to present to this group the report of your committee on nominations. I shall first read the nominations of the delegates and alternates from each of the 7 congressional districts for delegates to the National Convention. From District 1, Arch Dalrymple Jr. and Honorable Leo Norman are nominated as the delegates from the 1st District. The Honorable Frank Bean as alternate for the first named delegate, and the Honorable Herman Kilgore as alternate for the second named delegate from the 1st District. From the 2nd Congressional District, Judge Herbert Holmes is nominated as a delegate, and the Honorable John W. McCullough as the second delegate from the 2nd District. Senator James McClure Jr. is nominated as a delegate as the alternate for the first named delegate, and Honorable Harris Goldson is nominated as the alternate for the second named delegate from this district. From the 3rd District, Congressman Frank A. Smith and the Honorable W.T. Wynn are nominated as the delegates, and the Honorable W.L. McKee is nominated as the alternate for the first named delegate, and Senator W.P. Alexander as the alternate for the second named delegate. From the 4th District, the Honorable R.C. Stovall and the Honorable Charles Fair are nominated as the delegates, and the Honorable John C. Love is alternate for the first named delegate, and Mrs. Dave Webster as the alternate for the second named delegate. In the 5th District, Judge T. Wyman Manise and the Honorable Forrest Copeland are named as the delegates, and the Honorable J.O. Hollis is alternate for the first named delegate, and the Honorable A.D. Burnett is alternate for the second named delegate. From the 6th District, Congressman Will M. Carmer and the Honorable Robert Ross are named as the delegates, and are nominated as the delegates, and the alternates are the first name, Honorable Jimmy Anderson for the first name delegate, and the Honorable Joe Dale as alternate for the second name delegate. From the 7th District, the Honorable Oliver Emmerich and Honorable Russell Fox are named as the delegates, and the Honorable Farrah Truly is named as the alternate for the first name delegate, and the Honorable Fred Anderson as the alternate for the second name delegate. Now, these nominations were merely ratified by your nominations committee as they had been previously nominated by the caucuses of the several congressional districts. Your nominating committee further nominates the following 8 as the delegates from the state at large with a half vote each. The Honorable Hugh White, Governor of the state, the Honorable Carol Garton, the Lieutenant Governor, the Honorable Senator, Honorable James O. Eastland, United States Senator, the Honorable John Stennis, United States Senator, Honorable Walter Sellers, Speaker of the House of Representatives, the Honorable Fielding L. Wright, former Governor of our state, the Honorable T.J. Tubb, Chairman of the State Executive Committee, the Honorable W.W. Wright, Chairman of the People's Campaign Committee. Now, as alternates for these 8 state at large delegates, they have been named by the caucuses of your several congressional districts, and they shall be alternates in the name for the same person. They are recommended that they be alternates in the order in which they are named. The first named alternate shall be alternate for the first named delegate. So I shall read the 8 who have been nominated by the several district caucuses for alternates from the state at large. The Honorable Frank Hughes, the Honorable J.W. Hardaway, Honorable Mrs. Zelma Price, Honorable Ned Lee, Honorable J.C. Warren, Honorable Ray Stewart, Honorable Dr. Raymond Zeller, and Honorable Mrs. Hallie Mae Patterson. That concludes the nominations recommended by your nominating committee for the delegates and alternates to the convention, the Democratic Convention in Chicago. I move the adoption of the report of the committee.
You've heard the report. Motion made to adopt same, duly seconded. Any discussion? You've heard the further motion that, or suggestion, I'll put it nicely, that the motion be unanimously adopted, carrying with it, of course, the election unanimously of the candidates so proposed by the nominating committee. Any further discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. So ordered.
Your committee on nominations now presents to you for your ratification the nomination of the Honorable J.P. Coleman, our State Attorney General, to fill the unexpired term from the time of this convention until the conclusion of the Democratic Convention in Chicago, or for the interim term as National Committeeman from the state of Mississippi. And we nominate the Honorable J.P. Coleman for that position.
Any further nominations? There being no further nominations, those in favor of the election of J.P. Coleman as National Committeeman, according to the motion just made, signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. There being no noes, Mr. Coleman has been unanimously elected.
Your nominations committee presents to you the name of Mrs. Hermes Gaucher as the National Committee woman for the interim term from the time of this election until the conclusion of the Democratic Convention in Chicago, and moves that she be elected.
Any further nominations for National committee woman. Those in favor of the motion will signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it, and Mrs. Gaucher has been unanimously elected.
Your Committee on Nomination now presents for the National Committeeman for the 4-year term beginning at the conclusion of the Democratic Convention in Chicago and to serve for a period of 4 years, the name of Honorable Fielding L. Wright as National Committeeman. Move his election.
You've heard the nomination and the motion. Are there any further nominations? Those in favor of the motion and the election of Fielding L. Wright as permanent committeeman from the state of Mississippi signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Fielding, you've been elected.
Your committee would now present to you for your consideration and nomination Mrs. Hermes Gaucher for the 4-year term as National Committeewoman from the state of Mississippi to the Democratic Party.
Heard the nomination and the motion duly seconded. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The motion's carried. Mrs. Gaucher is so elected.
Your committee now presents to you for your action, and we hereby nominate the following named men and women for the State Democratic Executive Committee, they having been previously chosen at the 7 congressional districts caucuses. From the 1st District, T.J. Tubb, Royce White, and S.T. Pilkington. From the 2nd District, W.H. Anderson, Hugh Clayton, James McClure, Sr. 3rd District, T.D. Ruff, Tom Garrett, Forrest Cooper. From the 4th District, G.J. Thornton, Ed Underwood, and Jack Doty. From the 5th District, Mark Huff, W.H. Sanford, and Tally D. Riddell. From the 6th District, E.B. Patterson, R.G. Butler, and R.M. Newton. From the 7th District, Lawrence Adams, Ed Simmons, H.H. Hoffman, Alan Bridgeford, Tip Ray, and Robert Canada. I move the election of these parties to the State Democratic Executive Committee.
Motion duly made and seconded. Any discussion? Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion's carried, so elected. Now, I want to make an announcement at this point that it is requested that the State Executive Committee, which has been elected by this convention, convene immediately upon the recess of this convention on the stage over yonder to my left, and that all delegates so elected to the National Convention, together with their alternates, convene immediately after recess on the stage over here to my right. Now, Governor White has an announcement that he would like to make at this time. Governor White.
I want to say to all of the delegates to the convention, I have confirmation from the National Committee in Chicago, 50 rooms and 3 suites at the Congress Hotel, and that a special train will leave Jackson with our delegation and also the Louisiana delegation. We'll leave at the 2nd Panama Limited on Friday, the 18th of July, about 20 minutes after the regular leaving time of the Panama Limited. I want to request that all of the delegates, Mr. Barksdale has a chart to take your names. All of you are going. I wish you would give him your names today. Those of you who are not delegates that want to go to the convention and want reservations, that you'll give him your name so that
if the delegates and the alternates do not take up all the reservations, we'll have space for other Mississippians. And for the benefit of the delegates and the alternates, it is the intention of the hotel to have all keys on a table in the north side of the hotel. Your reservation will be made in advance, and I am told by the manager of the hotel that when you go there, all you'll have to do will be to pick up your key and go to your room. And Mr. Barksdale will go to Chicago, work out all of the details, provided all of you give him your names and you make that reservation in advance. And if you don't, friends, don't blame anybody but yourselves that you didn't ask for that reservation. I thank you. What is the further pleasure of the convention? Mr. Tubb from Clay County.
I move that this convention now recess according to the resolutions of the convention, sir.
You have heard the motion. It's been duly seconded. Those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The convention is now duly recessed in accordance with the resolution.
Ah